Okay, we're live. We think we're live. We got a squeaky chair and everything is normal. Once again, we're a day early on the actual official end of the challenge, but it doesn't matter. I don't consider the weekends part of the challenge. Like Saturday, I might wear the black wingtip boots that aren't part of the challenge, but I probably won't wear them again next Saturday, so they're not going to show significant wear anyway, etc. Some of these I did not wear. Okay, so part one, here we are in part one, wherein we discuss the prior 2 months, the 8 boots challenge, and which ones were worn and which ones weren't. So I guess technically we should start with week 7 and week 8 and then do the full recap. This will be a long episode. Part 2, of course, will be the reveal for next challenge, which again is for now the same title, 8 boots in 8 weeks. I found that 12 was too many weeks and too many pairs to really wear all of them, and I didn't end up wearing all of the ones this challenge again, or same as the previous challenge. So no big shock there, but I wore most of them because 8 boot, the weather being the kind of the factor that bumped out almost all of the alternate boots that I had scheduled. I wore the Keen boots like once for a couple hours, but it wasn't raining enough to really test the waterproofness, so I didn't bring them in to show them even because they look exactly the same. So the list without the alternates, because if you really want to go back to the last hour-long video and watch, and you'll see it list all the previous alternates. Again, most of them I didn't wear anyway. So first on the list was the Oliver CABELL service boots. So I didn't wear these as much recently, a little bit. So I didn't do a proper wear update. I did not wear these in week 7 or week 8. So I think they were in week 5 or week 6. But so we'll talk about them again more extensively after I just get through the list first. Next was the CASWELL CHUKKAs. I did not bring those in here. I did not wear them. They're still in the box, so we can skip that. Those got bumped, and I had barely worn them 2 years ago or whatever anyway. Wolverine Boulevard semi-dressed service boots. Yes, they were right here a minute ago. Well, there's one. Okay. Sorry about that. So again, the Wolverine, almost the same thing as the Oliver CABELL, but not exactly the same, but a similar design style, a much longer toe, a cap toe instead of a plain toe. Slightly different outsole. Again, we'll talk about them more extensively momentarily, but here they both are in all their glory. Now, again, these took on a lot of this character almost immediately, but this kind of creasing is more recent. This is not the exact boot. There was a different one where I realized how I'd been wearing them for a while. They were comfortable, but I realized how loose they were, so they weren't really being supportive. So then when I pulled them tighter, I don't know if that will add to the creasing like this or diminish it slightly or not. But that was an interesting day, but not a boot that I'm going to wear much going into spring still. Ariat Rambler. Those I wore for literally like an hour doing chores once or something, but I brought them in anyway, even though they're not going to show any significant wear since week 5 or 6, whenever that was. Sorry. Yeah, this could be a little more scientific than it is, but Ariat Rough Out was week 6, or Rough Neck, or whatever they're called. I always forget the name of it. The Rough Stock. Yeah, I wore these the same week. I think it was week 6. Sounds correct. No, week 3 though. So maybe I wore them a little bit more and I just don't remember. Well, if you actually were one of the few who watched those videos, maybe you'll remember better than I do. Can't say for certain, don't recall. But again, not much wear and tear, you know, in addition to the previous wear and tear. And again, not on the previous list, but similar was the Maverick boots, which again got worn a little bit on Saturdays, but not part of the challenge. So of course I have videos, unboxings of all of these, and some of them have updates and most of them do not. I haven't been great at, 3-month update, 6 months update kind of thing, because it just doesn't work out like that. So then the rough stock, the actual cowboy boots that I got, these were, of course, to replace the Dan Post boots or whatever that didn't fit. And they were half the price and made in China, but a decent thick leather. The heels are a little high, so it's kind of not as fun to walk around them as day wear. But I suppose if you were riding horses regularly, that would be a bonus. But of course, this outsole not conducive for dancing or other Saturday night activities, which is why I needed the Maverick ones, and of course, which I had already anyway. But the Maverick ones, of course, have like the heel is like half as high as these. I mean, even through the plastic, you can see that, right? These are the tallest heel thing I think I've ever had, just about. I do have some logger boots that have a pretty high heel. I think these are still taller. But of course, what little I wore them around, for casual use, running errands and stuff, I wasn't using them as, rodeo boots or work boots or anything of that nature. Which, again, would you rather have the roper heel to do that kind of stuff? Maybe if you're not really on horses, you might prefer this type of thing. Excuse me. Okay, so next was Nick's Handmade Packer MTO Mahogany 64. I did finally wear these. I kept putting it off and meaning to, and yada, yada, yada. Yeah, so I did, in my more Western wear motif or whatever, I wanted to, this one had this weird metal screw in the heel cap. So I wanted to try and wear them and see what happens when that becomes more protrusive, but it's not quite at the back all the way to where it's, noticeable when I'm walking in it. Again, this is such a thick, sturdy leather, you're not going to notice that much wear and tear in them at all for a little bit of non-chore use. But they're 10-inch height. They're meant to be a Western style, but I don't have the really pointy toes on them. The other pair has the more pointy toes that were not part of the challenge. And of course, the heel stack, it's moderate. It's horse stirrup rideable, but it's not too bad for walking. Like, again, this Jolly Rancher here, they're about the same, but the way it walks, it's really kind of awkward at first. When I'm first getting in them, they're kind of Bambi. So, I mean, it is actually might be the same exact height. Come to think of it. Okay. But I noticed this one a lot more when I noticed this one. Once I've been in these for a while, like they feel fine. Whereas these, I'm still sliding around in them. And I meant to put an insole in these. I put a little bit of the neoprene under the insole instead, or whatever my solution was, instead of a full insole. Because when I tried the full insole, my heel was too high up and it was really, everything was kind of mashed. And they stayed on my feet really well, but not perfect. So when I put the neoprene in there, it was a little bit thinner. It gave me still a little bit more wiggle room, a little bit more, this kind of standard cowboy heel slip or whatever. And that has worked out okay. And probably about as well as I can expect. Because again, I want to be able to get in and out of them too. I don't want my foot totally swelled up in it with a jammed up against the top of the vamp and all that. But again, so yeah, surprise, surprise. I mean, they are a pretty similar heel stack now that I'm looking at them more than I thought, which is, like I said, why this one's kind of awkward when I first get into it. But since it's a lace up and since it's more my correct size, yeah, once I'm in this for 15, 20 minutes, it's like wearing a regular, old friend, good to go, not a problem. Whereas this is still, all the usual issues with pull-on boots. This is the reason I started buying Packer boots in the first place. So there you go. Grant Stone Forest Kudu Service Boot Day-Night Outsole. Okay, so that was this, and I put them all back in the box to pack it away for the summer, and then now I got to get it all back out of the box. This was the green one. I kept meaning to wear the mahogany bison ones, and I never got around to it, but I wore these actually a few times. And so you can see it's similar to, the Thursday Captain boot or whatever, but in a much more elegant leather and all that. And or elegant, I don't know, a rough and tumble, but at the same time, an upgrade or whatever. So you got the 3 speed hooks. You got the more like the President ones that I get outsole. Oliver Cabell having a similar, and Thursday President having a similar. Not all the Presidents have the same outsole, but most of the Grant Stones in a specific style model category. I don't know how many choices they offer or not, but you can see a really low heel stack on this compared to even the Wolverine. So, but despite that, they're still sloppy on me. I still slide around in them more than some of the others. The Oliver Cabell has a little bit taller of a heel stack, but fit better overall. As I thought these were too big and sloppy when I had worn them previously, and I thought I needed thicker socks all the time and da-da-da. And I don't know, this time I was able to put the Oliver Cabells on and just wear them, whereas these was a little bit more like, and I did go hiking in these one day, not really intentionally and not a very significant steep area or anything. And yeah, somehow I got through it, but it wasn't like perfect, the experience. And yeah, the squeaky chair persists as much as I try to minimize my movements here, but this is the other one. But of course, this was kind of the St. Patrick's Day sort of thing. And I'm realizing that the other pair that should be here are not here. Oh, no, they're there. Of course, the Truman got subbed in. So instead of like the Caswell, I guess we can count these, which of course are a different shade of green and a different leather, the green Chiaja, and a totally more pronounced looking cap toe kind of feature. One less speed hook, different outsole. So these were one of the alternates that did get used a bit, and this was the pair, as I said, that when I was wearing them at the beginning of the part of the day, because they're such a tight fit kind of compared to some of the other ones, and they're such a thick leather, they had loosened up while I was walking, and so you can see they've creased quite a bit more. And so then I tightened them up, and again, I don't know if that will in the future, if I remember, help them to crease less, but they did get scuffed a bit more than I wanted to, especially the right one. I was doing it sort of a light chore and accidentally bumped the crap out of it there more than some of the others. But so this is the Truman boots on the whatever last from back when they changed the thing and the da-da-da. They phased out the other last that I kind of like better, and I was cursing my Truman boots for all being too tight. These weren't that bad though. And like I said, it was kind of like funny once I went away from them for a while and came back to them. They were kind of tight at first, but then, like I said, after I'd been wearing them for about an hour, I needed to pull the laces and had a lot of give, and was able to kind of, so little by little they break in. That's what boots do. Just have to be more patient, I guess, than I sometimes am. But of course, I don't wear bright green boots very often, even as silly as I might want to be sometimes. Not happening. Then the last one on the list was the Thursday Captain Capto Service Storm King outsole rugged and resilient. So that was the ones that I started with back in January and ended up switching to the other ones, the waxed flesh ones, in the last couple weeks, or last week, or this week, or whatever week. Week 7, I think, is the word I'm looking for. So yeah, I didn't wear these a ton. I wore them a little. It was kind of rainy, but I felt like these were going to be water resistant enough, and they were. It didn't rain that much when I wore them, so I didn't really have to deal with it. I don't really have any update about that. Like I said, back in week 1 or 2, whenever it was, I would have probably showed them off more extensively. I don't remember. But yeah, literally a boot that I keep kind of bringing out of storage and then putting back into storage because I have so many other ones to get to. And since they don't make this last anymore, I kind of want to make these last, literally. No pun intended, right? But they do have the Kevlar laces, which have still survived, although I think it was this pair or another pair where the laces were starting to look kind of damaged. I don't know. I don't see anything. Might have been a different one. Although how many more of these with the Kevlar laces do I have lying around? I don't remember. I took a pair out and put them in something else at some point, I thought, of the Diplomat boots or something. So it might be those ones that are getting worn in the Hero boots or something. Don't recall. But so, okay, so let's, going back to the boring list. It's really hard to read on camera. Wherever I put it, under the other boots. Boots that I did wear, again, we'll come back to that. So in the previous, what's this? Yeah, this was the list with some of the alternates. So yeah, like I said, some of the alternates that I did wear, again, was the whites, lace to toe. So I did end up wearing these a little bit, not a ton. They are still a bit big. The one day I thought I was going to go hiking, so I took them, and then I didn't end up going hiking. So I was just kind of warm and sweaty and sitting around in these for extra half an hour when I wanted to be on the trail and wasn't. But it was like 92 degrees or something, so whatever. But of course I got these used, so they look in the condition that mostly they came in. I didn't do most of this wear to them, so there's no real reason to show them extensively because I have barely used it compared to the previous resident. Then another alternate, like I said, the Truman Chiaha that I just showed. Those were not on the main list, but sub in for the CASWELL ones. One of the alternates was DSG CHUKKAs, which I didn't end up using, but will definitely be using soon. So, spoiler, that's going to be on the next list again because they're just going to rotate in instead of the other CHUKKAs. So that's the Hawthorne version of the whites, not the main $700 feature ones. Again, the Keen work boots I did not bring in. Excuse me. When the coaster has a mind of its own, right? So again, the Grant Stone. So one of the other, wrong list. One of the other alternates that got, like I said, the Nix Packer almost got bumped, and then I brought them back in because technically I would have counted probably some other boot that I wore more, but I did wear them a couple times, 2 or 3 days or whatever. The main, like I said, including the, spoiler alert, these waxed captains, which again are going to be on the next new list. You know, so there's pair number 2. But I did, like I said, switch to these just last week. You know, like I said, shuffling out the other captain pair that I hadn't been wearing since January, or shuffle out a different pair, however you want to count that. And then another one, these that I had worn for a whopping 5 minutes. I went to go put the mail in the mailbox or whatever, and by the time I got back to the house, I realized there was no way I was wearing these around and about without putting an insole or something in them. So the Oak Street with the reason I want to wear them around is to wear out this and replace this with a more hiking friendly outsole. But so spoiler, this is pair number 3 that'll be on the next list again too. Maybe there won't be a part 2. Maybe there'll just be a really long part 1 at the rate we're going. Because the next pair, exact same thing. So the joke will be on the people scrolling ahead to see part 2, wondering why I'm only naming 3 boots or whatever. But those are a mock toe, and again, you can see the unboxing video of that, and there's literally almost no wear in them since that video was recorded. So I did show them off, I think, in one of the challenge videos, but don't hold me to that. I don't memorize this stuff. I just talk and go on to the next one. But the Oak Street, that was episode 275. If you want to see that unboxing. The next one, again, not on the original list. So week 1, we had, like I said, we'll go through them a little more better in a minute. Week 5. Week 5, I had actually worn these. So in the week 6 video, I must have talked about these somewhat. Week 4, oh yeah, I got to show those first. Week 4, another substitute in that I did not wear. I only wore them twice, so not gonna go on and on about the update on this. But the JK Overtime OT boots, I wore these in that week, and then I wore them again week 6 or 7, I forget. Somewhere in there, I wore them again, barely, briefly. And they fit way better than I remembered after wearing a bunch of sloppy Grant Stone boots and things. Yeah, it was like, oh, these fit way more better than I remember, kind of thing. Shock. But of course, then I reshelved them again to deal with the hotter weather because it became very warm, and I did not want extremely thick leather. So it was kind of a surprise when I started wearing the Packer boots because it was pretty warm when I was doing that, I think, for at least one of the days. And then the temperature kind of mellowed out again. So the other pair from week 5. Week 5, and then week 6, and then again last week and this week, I think. So these have been in 4 weeks already, which is the Response Gear. I don't know, they come from Big 5 or someplace. The Response Gear tactical boots with the side zippers. Typically the ones I would take hiking most of the time in the warmer-ish months before it gets like hot when I have like the jungle boots and other things. So they're like an insulated jungle boot basically, but with a different traction outsole and just the laces that come with it. And I don't know if it's real leather or if it's some kind of painted plastic like Payless gives you or what, but they have, you know, kind of the spit shine and the injected outsoles or whatever instead of any kind of stitched outsole. But you can get them resoled because they can glue an outsole over this once it's kind of worn down. But usually by the time it gets to that point, the insides are pretty destroyed. So I resold one pair, and the cobbler told me, dude, you got ripped off. You should have just got rid of those, get a new pair. They're inexpensive. They're not meant to be resold. But you can, if you still have enough life left in again, the innards. So yeah, so these have been getting, I just wore these yesterday. These have been getting quite a bit of wear just to use them. And they're easy to lace up when I'm lazy and just grab, a chore boot or whatever. So these have been getting the nod. And of course, I've been doing more of the military inspired outfits that, look better with something like this than, a roper boot or whatever. Or don't necessarily need the full-on heritage look again like these. So, okay, so I realized, yeah, that's kind of a lot. But to go, so that's like part A of part 1, and now we're going into part B of part 1, where, like I said, I'm going to go through the list a little more thoroughly. So, like I said, the original first 2 boots was the Cap-Toe Captain, both service boots, late winter into early spring, and the Oliver CABELL. So, kind of, like I said, almost kind of the exact same boot, but not quite. They're slightly different. The leather is different. The Oliver CABELL, cost more, and I don't think they produce them anymore. Whereas these, they changed the last, but you can still get Captain boots for $200. And they have the Made in America ones, and they have the Vanguard ones that are kind of the same exact thing, and whatever. So yeah, both of my Captain boots got damaged here from the the garden gate. Where did I put the other one? They're right behind. This one got damaged even worse, but we'll talk about that more in a minute. So that's an accident-prone area for me, obviously. So yeah, this one got sliced a little bit, but not as extreme as that one. Just opening and closing the gate on my foot. And yeah, the creasing and whatnot was already kind of there. That kind of happened naturally originally. And I did start off, I think, putting shoe trees in these, but didn't do anything because of the construction kind of negated that. So like I said, yeah, not a ton of wear, mostly week 1. So, and maybe a little bit since then. The Oliver CABELLs I wore quite a bit more. Again, 2 speed hooks, some eyelets, pretty generic. The Kevlar laces. So like I said, I barely wore those. They can go back in storage till next October or whatever. These, on the other hand, like I said, are going to be getting a lot more use. I don't know what week this would have been. Week 7, probably. Yeah. Well, actually, week 8. Monday. So, my memory is usually pretty good. I probably wore them before that. I don't know if it's written on here. OT was week 5. Wolverine Boulevard week 5. Week 6, no. Week 6 was just the RG and the Ariat Rough Out. So I wore those black ones quite a bit, and these ones not so much. So okay, I guess we'll stop talking about these then, because they've hardly been worn, and they'll get more coverage next month or in 2 weeks or whatever when we do the next challenge update. So the Oliver CABELL, like I said, I did wear them quite a bit, but they don't show any more really significant wear that I can recall. Although obviously they've gotten a bit scratched from just wearing the overalls or whatever with them, the pants. Trousers would have been mostly denim, I think, because it would have been overalls a fair amount of the time, and it would have been not the key hickory stripe ones, but the Big Smith or the Liberty ones, I think. And I did a whole bunch of overall videos. You can check those out. I'm not going to go into all the numbers. It's, out. You can check the outerwear playlist, I think, or one of the other playlists. Western wear playlist. I'm pretty sure they're in that. So you get an idea. Now the one lace did break on these. That's why I shelved them. It wasn't terrible. I just didn't use the speed hook. I just laced this one lace down because I wasn't going all the way to the top of the speed hooks anyway. So when this broke, right after I trimmed them, I just went ahead and laced it through here and did 2 knots, and I didn't bother with the speed hook. Whereas this one, I laced it up 1 additional lace. And why this lace didn't break, I don't know, because I trimmed this one shorter, so I got lucky. Because this one was kind of long, and I was thinking about retrimming it, and then it broke, because that's how it goes. Yeah, so that was my solution. But again, in the next challenge, I didn't end up wearing the Wolverine loaders and the Thorogoods or anything like I kind of thought I might. Like I said, I did use the Maverick ones. The yeah, spoiler. the next spoiler. These are on the next list. These will get worn more. I'm not gonna throw these in the cupboard with the captains just yet. And but the Boulevards, I am going to shelve these. I'm not going to wear them that regularly, since I already have these out. And the Oak Street ones that I really do want to wear a bit. Excuse me. So again, no reason to go into these too extensively now, because they'll be getting shown again in 2 weeks. So that was week 1. Week 2 was Oliver CABELL again, so done. Grant Stone. Again, now the issue with the Grant Stone and then Ariat. Again, I have no reason to show the Ariat that much, because they show no significant wear and tear in the little amount of time that they've been used. That's that. The Grant Stone, on the other hand, where'd I put them? These, I wore them quite a bit for a minute there, a couple days, week 2 and week 3. Week 4 was the Boulevards instead, and the OTs. Week 6, no, that's week 5. Sorry, week 4 was Oliver CABELL, Grant Stone. Yeah, so week 3 and week 4 and week 2. So 3 weeks in a row, I wore these a pretty significant amount. So most of March, these got somewhere. Before, again, I switched to the lighter green ones that came on week 7 or sooner. Where, I don't know, where are they? They're in here somewhere. Truman week 7. Yeah, okay. I thought I wore the Truman sooner than that, at least once. Maybe not. I don't remember. Anyway, the Truman ones might get worn some more. These ones are going right back in the box because they're dark green, and we'll worry about it next year. Again, they don't show that significant wear, but again, I didn't neglect them at all. I wore them. Again, I didn't necessarily love the tongue being the main issue. This tongue has a, I'm going to have to partly unlace it. Really show this off. So they don't have a straight tongue. It's kind of a tapered thing going on. And so what happens, I don't know, it's a little bit thin at the bottom. I don't know that that's the reason, and it's also kind of a thin leather, but they slide way over, and I had to buy the wide of these again to get my feet in them. So this is all getting rubbed on the speed hooks here, even though they don't have the very sharp backings of the speed hooks. But that's getting rubbed like crazy, and but I'm having to pull the boot like super tight all the way up to keep them from really making my feet want to slide in them a lot. So there's a little bit of indentation on the heel. They're not that cushiony compared to, like, the Thursday, the cushions kind of wears out prematurely, but the rest is leather. So down here you got leather and then this bit of rubber. So they are not very super comfortable to walk in. I mean, the Oliver CABELL are similar but more comfortable. I don't know. I didn't mind the Oliver CABELL, and the other ones that I boxed up, the Wolverine 1000 Miles, those ones I think are probably even more comfortable than either of these two. Then they have the, the glove lining or whatever. The kudu leather is supposed to not really breathe, but I wasn't wearing them in, extremely warm temperatures that I was so much worried about my, feet sweating so much. But the leather itself, obviously, is, apart from where it's gotten scuffed, is pretty, sturdy and durable. There's a little bit of kind of the grainy thing going on there. I mean, that's pretty normal with usage, right? The insides aren't showing a lot of real issue. So yeah, just regular wear and tear, but again, less than a month of use really overall. So they're not all beat up. They haven't been put through their paces. The outsoles are, not quite fresh out of the box, but they're not showing a lot of wear on the heels yet, even, a tiny bit. You can notice it on the left one more than the right one, where my pronation is pretty even overall. It's not terrible. I don't wear my boots super funky. The fact that none of them match my Brannock size is kind of weird because my feet are almost the exact same size, even though the one gets kind of schizo and says, this one's too tight, this one's too tight. It's like, no, they're the same boot. Like, that's just my foot being weird. It's almost the exact same size as my other foot. I don't wear them, in a really weird, instep pattern or anything like that. So it is what it is. Okay, so that's week 2 or 3. Tongue slide fit, Oliver CABELL. Oh no, sorry, Grant Stone. Grant Stone, the fit and the tongue slide. Yeah, I covered that already way back in episode 2 or whatever. 1.5. However you count that when I ended the one episode, same as I'm doing with this one. So week 3 with the Rambler, again, I showed those. There's no significant wear. Oliver CABELL, yes, I showed those. Grant Stone, yep, just did those. Week 4, Oliver CABELL, again, Grant Stone, yep, same exact ones. Overtime, yep, same. Like I said, they look exactly the same almost as they did before. And the Maverick got in on a Saturday, but doesn't really count. Oliver CABELL on a Friday, whatever. Okay. Week 5, whites lace to toe. I already showed those. Like I said, they don't show any significant change because they already beat to crap when I got them. RG black side zip. Again, I don't know that I really need to show these that much. And again, these are going into the next rotation anyway, so stay tuned. And plus week 6, like I said. And that brings, and OT, we wore those again in week 4, maybe 5, and Wolverine Boulevard. So let's look at the Wolverine Boulevard a little bit in more depth right now, because again, we're not going to wear these in May, and probably not in June either, but maybe, who knows. So like I said, they took on a little bit of additional character. Like I said, they started kind of really showing this kind of, I don't know what you'd call that, saddle swing or ledge or something. But other than that, mostly the same. Again, that might be, I don't know if that's where I'm not pulling them tight enough, because I'm pulling these pretty tight, I think. Kind of an overcompensation, because the long toe, like I said, I don't really notice it. My toes are not that long by a mile. If I take these to a cobbler to ever get them resold, I might see if he can reduce the front somehow, because I really don't need all this extra, especially if I'm driving. That would be kind of weird. And they do have shoe trees in them right now, so they're not collapsing as much as they could, because the one crease went a little bit diagonal, the other one went a little more straight, but that was on like the first night I wore them. They creased like that, and been the same ever since. But yeah, this one also has quite a bit of the ledge, some of that kind of, what do you call that, pebbling texture almost. So an interesting boot with a lot of character. A discontinued model, I don't know why. The mini lugs, which are not super comfortable and not really hiking outsoles, so they're kind of a, I guess a lot of people consider them like the worst of both worlds or whatever, but for streetwear, I don't think they're terrible because, you know, you'll end up resoling them anyway sooner than later. The heel stacks, again, not ridiculous, but not as high as the captain, I don't think. A little bit higher than the president, though. Tiny bit, almost the same as the president. Which, again, the president boots did not make this list. They're just in here from my previous video where I was doing the unboxing of the other president and the other color. But the boots that I got at around the same time as these, I might have got these first, I don't remember. But these were like on clearance for $100. So I was like, okay, well, who cares? If they fit, they fit. You know, if they don't, they don't. Because I would have just turned around and stuck them on eBay if they didn't fit and tried to, you know, make back my money. So what was that? Week 5, week 6 was the RG and the Ariat rough out. So then week 7 was the Truman, which we just talked about a little bit. And the Nix Packer, which I guess I'll show them again a little bit more. And the black zip ones again. Okay, so week 7, the Truman boots again. Boots that I might wear a little bit as an alternate or a substitute or whatever. Don't hold me to it. But I don't expect with leather this thick that they're going to show that significant a wear. Now, these have the more gusseted tongue. It's gusseted up to almost the speed hooks. But I didn't put the kilties in them. I don't think I ever would with this particular color because it would just look kind of odd. But they do have the rough edges here that can damage. And this has like a suede back. So it's not super thin, but it's not the extra thick leather like up around the collar. But it's basically this. I think they split this a little bit to make it a little more malleable than the regular side of the uppers here. But it's, again, it's the same leather. So the tongue is reasonably thick and gusseted, so it's not going to slide again back and forth like the Grant Stone ones do. I'm pretty sure these are the laces that came with it. They usually give you like some tan laces, or did. But I think these were the laces that came with it. Anyway, you got the not 360 stitching though. You got the different heel stitching, whereas like almost all the ones that I think I showed are the 360 welt. The Grant Stones are, the Thursdays are, the Oliver Cabells are not. Okay, yeah. So let's show that a minute. So the Oliver Cabell has the slightly different welt, more similar to the Truman, whereas you can see it really good on the captain here, all the way around. Yeah. So the welt is different. It's got this kind of beveled thing going on, where it kind of swoops up in. This was the 1942 Army style outsole. I wasn't crazy about it when I first got it, but for street use, it's fine. Like, there was a guy who was arguing with me that he didn't think that the Army guys all died of no traction in, you know, World War II. Actually, a lot of them did have problems with traction, but when they got to France, it was so muddy that this was probably a good outsole for those conditions until the spring cleared up or whatever. I don't know, but in Sicily or whatever, I think these were a liability because they were on that mountainous terrain. But some heels, some nails in the heel. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 ish, and whatever it says there, Truman boot. Whatever, it's easier to read on camera than in my line of sight with the Eugene, Oregon. Okay. And then you got the extra little row of stitching there with the contrast stitching, of course, instead of matching stitching, so a little bit of character. So decent ones overall, but I hear they changed how they make them or something. I don't know. I haven't looked at their stuff in a while because I have several pairs and I don't use them as much as I should. And again, I didn't use these at all. So that brings us to, like I said, week 8. We did not wear the keen, or I didn't bring in the keen boots here. We didn't wear them. It didn't rain enough. The black ones, and then the the Thursday cap. So that was week 8 in a nutshell. Okay, so that brings us finally with spoilers to part 2. Oh, we're at 45 minutes, so this video will be a little bit shorter than the last one, which is always good since I've already done 2 pretty long videos. So the next list, well, for those of you who are just tuning in, these not the cowboy boots. Let's see, what did I forget? Oh, Oak Street are in the box. Oh, I gotta get the box. How many pairs was that? 1, 2, 3, 4. That was 4 of the pairs, I think. And then, of course, LL Bean shoes and boat mocks and camp. I already wore some of those. Thursday, Captain 10. Those. Oh, Nick's. These. I forgot to talk about these in week 7. So we'll talk about them now. Because I said I would and then I didn't. Forgot. Okay. Well, no big deal. Like I said, they don't show a ton of new wear. And like I said, they're kind of a Western boot, but since I'm also doing kind of the mountain man thing, like they're mountain-y-ish, so they'll work. But they do have the extra arch support. You can see the bit of the rounded extra. Got the V-bar or whatever it's called outsole instead of a more luggy traction one. I never intended to wear a cowboy heel hiking, so I went with that. Although using these for just casual streetwear when they're more of the work leather, it's kind of either or. So I might actually switch to a luggier outsole with these when this fails and make them into more hiking boots. I don't know. I mean, like I said, I don't necessarily care for this instead of this instead of this when I'm walking, but the logger ones are kind of the same. They do also taper a bit compared to, your wider foot in the front. So it's not that much different than the logger heel in that regard. So maybe, but I did get the other boots, and these didn't make the official list, but I kept putting off, and I was going to include these as alternates in the last, and instead I wore these. So these are definitely on my priority list to finally wear these stupid things. Because these are the ones that I really, really, really wanted to get them in. But I did not put them on the official list. Like I said, I put these on the official list again for now. And like I said, I can always change my mind in a week or 2 if I have like a heel stack failure or something. Because again, this one has this weird screw sticking out the bottom. The leather, like I said, doesn't show any significant wear and tear at this point. The speed hooks are all fine. I haven't worn them enough. I haven't damaged them or beat them up or done anything silly. I've worn them on asphalt, so the rubber backing here is about the only real wear that I have to worry about so far. So yeah, that literally leaves those and those. Okay, so pair number 1 that I mentioned again was the Oak Street. Like I said, there's no real reason to really show these in extent, but they are different. Again, slightly from the the Builder Pros, sorry, the Knicks. And they're also different enough from the LL Bean ones because I got the kangaroo ones and I got the camp shoe ones. The camp shoe ones I came very close to wearing the other day and then didn't. So alternate to these, I might wear the LL Bean camp shoe ones. They also need an insole or something though, but not as significant as these because I've worn them around casually a bit. I just don't like going for walks in them. But both of them have a terrible outsole for hiking. So again, I need to wear both of them out and figure out what to do with the outsole. Whereas this is, you know, obviously just ready to go. And being neglected along with my Builder Pros ×2. But so yeah, but I don't know why they put the Vibram on there. I think it was to try and come close to resembling the Red Wing Christie sole or whatever it's called, or the Irish Setters. And so this was a cheap, viable option just to get the boots out the door. But I'm on West Coast terrain, and that is totally impractical. You know, it might be a perfectly fine outsole for, you know, laying some cement or whatever, but or going to the beach, you know, or something. But for any mountainous kind of activity, no traction at all. Which brings us to kind of similar, but not the exact same thing. The CHUKKA boots. I had worn the brown ones of these, I think, but maybe not these. I can't remember. I might have worn these. In fact, they're creased. I know I did. Okay. So I have worn these before. So when the weather warms up, these go good with all my safari looking stuff. They fit okay. You know, they're probably a little tight if memory serves, because I wasn't really sure about the sizing, and my feet have probably swelled since I bought these 10 years ago or whenever it was. I haven't hardly worn them since. But this is just a real generic basic CHUKKA boot. Literally going into spring, summer. Like I said, it's kind of a month premature to really need these, but we've also been having heat waves. So, oops, upside down, yeah. So they are definitely right around the corner for me boots right now. These are pretty much what I'm going to be looking for if I wear anything that's a boot more than this, or again, this. So, and then of course the left one looks like the right one. What a shock. And lastly, number 8, just because, again, if the Builder Pros are a little too thick, again, it's kind of an either or. This is sort of my disclaimer, but again, the Thorough Goods, I had shelved these after I had started wearing them finally, because I really wanted to get some use in them. So at the end of last year, I think it was, or the beginning of this year, I had started finally wearing these. They have a little bit of wear and tear in them, but not much. But again, not good for hiking. Was using them just for casual stuff, not really a chore boot, because when I needed a chore boot, I grabbed the other Wolverine loader ones, which, you know, cost half the price of these or almost or whatever. But also those were 6-inch, not 8. Similar thin leather, but not exact same leather. Much thicker wedge. So a little bit more of a platform shoe, but not uncomfortable, but a little bit worse fit. I was sliding around in them, whereas these didn't really need any break in. They were pretty close to correct. I was having a bit of trouble with the laces kind of cutting me through the thin tongue, where if I tried to loosen them a bit, they did feel too sloppy and stuff, so I'd have to pull them tighter than I wanted, and then I'd get a bit of bite in the, not the ankle, but the front of the leg, whatever part you call that, the opposite of the, well, it's not the shin bone, but the shin area, whatever. But so yeah, these have a little bit of wear in them finally, but not a ton. So these were my mountain man kind of go-to looking boots when I went to replace the other ones, the Dockers that I used to have, but I ended up with the Grant Stone ones, So really, I should be wearing the Grant Stone ones for that look, that real mountain upland huntery kind of look. But instead, it's going to be these because I have like 3 pairs of them and I need to use them. So, finally. So that's it. That's my 8 next boots, if I counted right. And then I have alternates again that I didn't bother to type up the whole list for alternates for the details this time. I just sort of started recording without listing. So check in later and I'll have the more proper list. In the description. Yeah, right now it's not going to be much in there because I didn't type it up. Well, I typed up some stuff. I might as well read it here. I was talking with or commenting on somebody else's boot video where I was saying the closure on the dress wingtip is an Oxford, not a derby, so they might feel more weird wearing them in an office casual environment or some other environment, I guess. But they are more formal traditionally, you know, except this pair he had were wingtips, which are more casual than formal shoes again, you know. So that's the kind of thing that drives me nuts. Same as pleated front chino shorts. You know, they're still shorts, so they'll never be proper formal attire like trousers, you know, where you would need pleats, but they can still look more correct with Oxford button-down short sleeve shirts, similar to this, than some of the other casual shirts or even polo shirts-ish. But of course, short sleeve shirts might as well be mostly other fabric that's better for summer than, again, this chambray and Oxford stuff or poplin, whatever. Since neither short pants nor short sleeves is really office appropriate in, you know, any of the jobs where the kind of smart casual stuff would be acceptable, etc. You know, and he had some Allen cap toe boots before the wingtips. I don't have any Allen Edwards. I had to return them. Yeah, I bought mostly Thursday boots for the cost because most of the expensive option brands like Allen Edmonds and Grant Stone, they fit me about the same. And unless I want like a really interesting leather, I don't know that they wear that much better that they should cost twice as much. It's kind of like I said, those Wolverine ones cost me half as much as the Thursday ones though. And so the fact that they didn't fit quite exact and this and that was like, again, why would I pass that up? They're $100. Just get them. Hope for the best. I'm more in line with the Hero or the President models than the Captains for the more elevated look, for the more simple look. Plain toe. I can't really think of an argument for, again, the more expensive boots if someone's just going to get Thursdays for the price. Because, again, that's, yeah. This was closer to $450 or I don't think this was a full $500. Maybe I got them on sale. I don't remember exactly. Some of them, one of the pairs I think I got for a low price because they were discontinued, and that was the last that I liked better or something. But most of the Truman boots I bought for, I think, around the full price. And yeah, the leather's thick. They don't come in wide widths, you know, this and that. They've changed their construction method or whatever, this and that. You know, is they really worth it? You know, that's going to really be subjective. It's going to be up to you. These, again, I think cost more than the Thursday boots by a good 120 or more. But the leather's different enough. The fit is better, like I said, than I remembered. Overall, I liked these, but I don't think they produce them anymore, like I said. And got something in this hole here. Pollen. There we go. A little bit of tree debris. But yeah, overall, I think the Oliver CABELL are an interesting boot, and not my least favorite pair for as much as they've been neglected in the last year or whatever. I'm just noticing I've got wood chips and junk in the outsole, and we're at the point of the video where most people have tuned out because I wasn't planning to go the full hour, but here we are. Then the USA captains, like I said, I don't know what's the difference of those. The never ended up without Emmons. Couple pairs of Wolverine that I like the fit enough, but one discontinued, and forget what paid for the other. The 1,000 Mile. A lot of people are slagging those off lately, saying that they're not worth the price. That may be true, but I don't mind. I think they're very comfortable overall for me. But they weren't part of this challenge. Like I said, I shelved those until next autumn. Same as the these, even though I'm keeping these good, sort of, but these are obviously not as nice of a boot in my opinion. So these will get worn much more sooner. And I didn't want to get the Chrome XL from the Grant Stone because I had them and I returned them because I thought they looked exactly like the Thursday boots for, again, way more money. So if I want them in the future, that's an option, but nothing that I needed. But because they also fit more sloppy in the wide width than these do in the regular width. Same as the new Captain Last. And the Grant Stone tongues roll around too much, like I said. Not all the stuff is replaceable. He was saying, oh, I can always just replace these. Well, you can't always necessarily replace them because they do discontinue things. They do change the sizing of things. They change the lasts. Both of these companies, the pricing can go way up. But overall, you know, that's like my problem with the minimalist saying to dump all your stuff and you know, buy it as you need it. Whereas I like to collect the stuff if it fits because it's hard for me to find shoes in my size that I like. Other stuff I might have too much, like shirts, flannel shirts especially, but I didn't buy any flannel shirts this year, right? I just bought those Wrangler ones. So yeah, I have, you know, stuff that's the wrong size in clothes, but I definitely can't seem to find the exact same thing in terms of quality and a bunch of that type of stuff. Yada, yada, yada. And then the hybrid shoes. He had talked about the hybrid shoes. I only have one pair of those. Maybe I'll wear those in summer, but like I said, by the summer, I'm usually more in mock toes and boat shoes and sneakers, that sort of thing. Okay, so wow, that was a long video after all. Not as unbearable as it could have been, hopefully for you, as it was for me. Looks like my viewers have dropped off, though, with no surprise there. So as always, if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the comments. And as always, you can go to the Buy Me a Coffee or Pizza app and donate to this nonsense fund if you enjoy this content more than they did or whatever. And you want to see more head-to-head review things. I realize these aren't exactly head-to-head reviews, not literal head-to-head, as I was trying to do more with some of the other brands like the Wolverine and the Golden Fox and whatnot, but not everything is a one-to-one comparison, so it doesn't always quite work the way we'd like. Wrong box. But yeah, you know, we do the, yeah, I'll try and do more of that kind of thing in the future where it warrants, but I'm doing this and I'm doing the boot talk most other weeks when I'm not doing the 2-week challenge updates, because I realize that a weekly challenge update, the boots just aren't going to show that much wear and tear for me to do this every week. But if other stuff comes up, like what I just read of his comments, usually I put that in the challenge. So maybe I'll reread that in the next challenge. And some of you who made it this far will be like, I already heard that. Sorry. But anyway, as always, boycott Tinder. I just did a whole long video about that again. And I got another one on the you know, that I didn't even get to the other stuff yet, that I didn't even, because the other 2 videos were so long. But Matt Walsh just did a video about it yesterday that you should watch the first 10 minutes of that. And that's more about the consumer fraud aspect of the thing. Mine is more about the toxic employee culture aspect of the thing. But these businesses are bona fide consumer fraud, according to what he's laying out now, more than in depth than I, like I said, was interested in going. So all you class action lawyers can, you know, fire up your laptops and get busy. Okay, I'm really going to stop now. We're only a little over an hour. It's not terrible.